In March of 2017, a 15-year-old girl was raped in Chicago, Illinois. According to the Chicago Tribune, authorities say as many as 6 males assaulted the victim. This horrible attack was live streamed on Facebook and viewed by dozens of people, none of whom called police or came to her aid. Despite video evidence, only 2 teens were apprehended, and one is still awaiting a court date. These teens were not charged with rape, as Judge Patricia Mendoza felt that having them registered as sex offenders was enough of a punishment. Meanwhile, the victim has returned to school to threats and ridicule, trying to piece together a life for herself after horrific trauma. This is what happens in today's American rape culture: sexual assault of children, sexual assault on college campuses, and inadequate consequences for perpetrators. First, I want to go over the sexual assault of children. According to the National Sexual Domestic Violence Resource Center, 25% of children are sexually abused before the age of 18. Additionally, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, RAINN, reports that 82% of juvenile victims are female. I am 15 years old, and the NSVRC reports that 32% of rapes happen to women in my age range. I have 2 younger sisters, age 6 and 10, and the NSVRC reports that 22% of all rapes happen to children under the age of 12. These statistics should be alarming, but instead they have been accepted as cultural norm. Convictions are rare, sentences mild. Victims are criticized, shamed, and blamed, from everyone to police to their own family members. Next, let's look at inadequate consequences for perpetrators. According to RAINN, out of every 1,000 rapes, 994 perpetrators will walk free. As in the case of the Chicago teen rape, these violent actions of young men are often downplayed as mistakes or small lapses in judgment, when in reality these acts are vicious and intentful, because these men know that they will not be charged and they will not be held responsible for their crimes. Next, we'll look at the sexual assault on college campuses. According to RAINN, women between the ages of 18 and 24 who are in college are 3 times more likely than women in general to experience sexual violence. It is imperative that something be done to ensure student safety, as the NSVRC reports that 1 in 5 women will be sexually assaulted while in college, and more than 90% of those women will not report the assault. Attempts to create expulsion measures against these perpetrators have been met with claims that such measures could prevent men from completing their college education. Meanwhile, the National Center of Domestic and Sexual Violence finds that nearly 50% of these women will suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, which undoubtedly will create challenges in them completing their college education. There's a quote by Sandra Cisneros, a feminist writer, who says, "We do this because the people we love are burning and the world we live in is a house on fire." So what are things that we can do to take personal action to improve the world for our women? We can take personal action. We can challenge our own biases. We can start with how we view ourselves. We can decide to reject stereotypes and unrealistic media standards. We can be advocates for change. This can be as simple as responding to a sexist comment, or as hard as creating a culture where our children are not limited on their activities and interests by gender. We have to make sure that our children are educated and supported during their youth, and we have to make sure that our children are being listened to and that people are responding to their issues. There's no one simple answer to this problem, but it's up to us to combat sexual violence together. We have to work, communities and institutions, we have to work together to solve this serious issue. Martin Luther King says, "In the end, it was not the words of our enemies that hurt, but the silence of our friends." So we cannot be silent. We have to remember that the sexism is real, and rapists are regular, everyday people whom we interact with every day. It's easy to ignore rape, but we have to understand that these numbers, they affect us, they affect our children, our daughters, our mothers, they affect our families. So when we laugh at a sexist comment, we're giving rapists our approval. So we cannot stay silent. We need to be leaders and advocates. Between now and the time I started speaking, 4 people have been sexually assaulted in the US alone. This is a serious issue, and we owe it to our children to stand up to prevent this serious issue. Help me to stand up to sexism and work to prevent sexual violence against women. Thank you.